chosen one. Why are you still fighting battles that God already won? Why are you still carrying burdens that were never meant for your shoulders? And why are you still living like an orphan when heaven has been calling you home? Stop everything you're doing right now. This is not another video you stumbled across while scrolling. This is a divine interruption. Heaven just pressed pause on eternity, and God himself leaned forward to get your attention. Right now, in this very moment, there's a courtroom session happening in the spiritual realm. Your name has been called, the gavel has struck, and you have been summoned to the witness stand of destiny. You feel it, don't you? That stirring in your chest, that trembling in your spirit, that sudden awareness that this moment is different. That's not emotion, that's spiritual recognition. Your soul knows what your mind is just beginning to understand. Here's the shocking truth they don't want you to know. You've been living in the wrong realm. You've been fighting with earthly weapons in a spiritual war. You've been begging for crumbs when you were born to feast at the king's table. But this Sunday, something seismic is about to shift in your life. The atmosphere around you is changing. The spiritual climate is shifting. And God is about to take full control in ways that will leave your enemies speechless and your doubters stunned. This is your moment. Not next month. Not when you feel ready. This Sunday. But only if you're prepared to hear what God is whispering in the secret chambers of your heart. Before we go deeper, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're sowing seeds into divine revelation. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your attention, your open heart. It all matters to the kingdom. If something's already stirring in your spirit, if you can feel heaven moving even now, comment, "Take over" below. Let the heavens know you're present for this word. Let the angels know you're ready for divine intervention. Chosen one. Your ordinary life ends this Sunday. What's about to unfold will rewrite your story forever. Are you ready? How many times have you sat in the back row, watching everyone else get chosen while you remained invisible? How long have you wondered if God made a mistake when he created you? If maybe you were just an afterthought in his grand design? And when was the last time you looked in the mirror and saw what heaven sees, not a forgotten soul, but a chosen vessel? Listen to me, chosen one. I need you to hear this with every fiber of your being. You have been living a lie. You have been accepting a counterfeit identity that was never meant for you. For too long, you've been convinced that ordinary is your portion, that mediocrity is your inheritance, that being overlooked is just your lot in life. But that ends today. Maybe you've spent decades watching others get picked while you were passed over. Maybe you've sat in countless meetings, church services, family gatherings, watching as recognition went to everyone but you. Maybe you've applied for that promotion 50 times, only to see it go to someone with half your experience. Maybe you've poured your heart into relationships that never valued what you brought to the table. You were never the loudest voice in the room. You never demanded attention or fought for the spotlight. And somewhere along the way, the world convinced you that quiet means insignificant, that humble means invisible, that gentle means powerless. But here's what they don't understand. God doesn't choose based on volume. He chooses based on vessel. The Bible declares in Jeremiah 1-5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Do you understand what that means? Before your first breath, before your first heartbeat, before the foundation of the world was laid, God had you in mind. You weren't an accident. You weren't plan B. You were his original design. You see, while the world was looking for the flashy, the loud, the impressive, God was looking for the faithful. While they were picking based on resumes and connections, God was choosing based on character and calling. While they overlooked you, heaven was preparing you. Every rejection you faced was divine protection. Every door that closed was God redirecting you towards something greater. Every time you felt invisible, you were actually being hidden in the secret place of the Most High, being prepared for a purpose that would require everything you've learned in the shadows. 1 Peter 2-9 reminds us, "You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, not might be, not could become. You are. Right now, today, in this moment, you are royalty wrapped in ordinary clothes. You are a priest disguised as a regular person. You are special possession of the Creator of the universe. But the enemy has been working overtime to make you forget this truth. He's whispered lies so long and so loud that you started believing them. He told you that you're too old to matter, too quiet to make a difference, too ordinary to be chosen. He convinced you that your best years are behind you, that your dreams expired with your youth, that your significance died with your disappointments. That's not just wrong, it's demonic deception. You are not background noise in God's symphony. You are not a supporting character in someone else's story. You are not an extra in the movie of life. You are the heartbeat of heaven's plan. You are the instrument God has been tuning in secret, preparing for a solo that will silence every voice that ever told you that you didn't matter. Think about this. Moses was 80 years old when God called him to deliver Israel. Abraham was 75 when God promised him nations. Sarah was 90 when she conceived the impossible. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Your age is not your limitation, it's your qualification. Your quiet years weren't wasted, they were preparation. Your invisible seasons weren't punishment, they were positioning. The world looks at you and sees retirement. God looks at you and sees recruitment. The world sees your gray hair as a sign of ending. God sees it as a crown of wisdom, ready to be deployed. The world sees your slower pace as decline. God sees your measured steps as the disciplined march of a seasoned warrior. But here's what's about to change everything. This Sunday, God is pulling back the curtain. He's removing the veil that has hidden your true identity. He's about to reintroduce you to yourself, not as the forgotten one, not as the overlooked one, but as the chosen one you've always been. The same God who called David from the sheep field is calling you from your ordinary circumstances. The same God who promoted Joseph from the prison cell is about to elevate you from your place of hiddenness. The same God who transformed Esther from an orphan to a queen is about to reveal the royalty that's been dormant in your DNA. You were never meant to blend in. You were designed to stand out. Not through arrogance or self-promotion, but through the authentic power of a life that has been touched by the Almighty. You were never meant to apologize for taking up space. You were created to fill it with purpose. This Sunday, heaven is declaring an end to your season of obscurity. The invisible years are over. The forgotten phase is finished. The overlooked chapter is closing. You are stepping into a realm where your value is not determined by man's opinion, but by God's appointment. If you've ever felt like the forgotten one, the invisible one, the one who got passed over one too many times, comment, "I've been marked" below. Because today, you are being reintroduced to your divine identity. Today, you are remembering who you really are. But this recognition comes with a warning and a promise that will determine everything about what happens next. Listen to me, chosen one. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. The thing nobody wants to acknowledge in church. The reality that keeps you awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering if God has forgotten your address. You've prayed for healing, for answers, for clarity, and the heavens went quiet. Dead silent, radio silence from the throne room. You've cried out until your voice cracked, until your knees bled from kneeling, until your faith felt more like foolishness. And heaven seemed to put you on hold forever. You've buried people, dreams, parts of yourself. Maybe it was your mother who never got to see you succeed. Maybe it was that marriage you fought for with everything you had. Maybe it was that business, that ministry that calling you was so sure came from God himself. Gone, buried 6 feet under disappointment and unanswered prayers. And in those moments, those dark, suffocating moments, you asked the question that every believer whispers but few dare to speak. God, where the hell are you? I said it. And you felt it. Because that's exactly where you've been living, isn't it? In the hell of silence, in the valley of unanswered prayers, in the wilderness of waiting where manna stopped falling and the water ran dry. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. Here's what your pain has been hiding from you. Silence doesn't mean abandonment. It means activation is near. Look at Joseph, thrown in a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown in prison, forgotten by everyone who promised to remember him. For 13 years, God said nothing, absolutely nothing. No burning bush, no angelic visitations, no prophetic dreams, just silence. But that silence wasn't God's absence, it was God's academy. Every betrayal was building his character, every injustice was developing his discernment, every lonely night was preparing him for the palace. Because you can't rule nations until you've ruled your own spirit in the pit. You have collected all my tears in your bottle, David wrote in Psalm 56:8. Did you hear that? God hasn't missed a single tear. He's been collecting them, bottling them, cataloging every drop of your pain. Why? Because those tears are about to become the foundation of your testimony. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God spoke through a burning bush. 40 years. Do you know how many prayers that is? How many nights he probably wondered if he'd heard God wrong? How many times he questioned if he was truly called or just delusional? But that wilderness wasn't wasted time. It was preparation time. Because you can't deliver God's people until you've learned to survive in impossible places. You can't part seas until you've learned to navigate deserts. And Jesus' sweet Jesus hung on a cross crying, my God, why have you forsaken me? Even the Son of God felt the crushing weight of divine silence. Even Jesus experienced the hell of abandonment. But that silence? That wasn't the end of the story. It was the pause before the resurrection. The tomb was silent for 3 days. 3 days of hell on earth for the disciples. 3 days of thinking they'd followed the wrong Messiah. 3 days of crushing disappointment. But Sunday morning was coming. Sunday morning was always coming. Here's the truth that will shatter your understanding. God's silence isn't punishment, it's preparation. He's not ignoring you, he's incubating you. Like a mother bird who stops feeding her young to force them to fly, God sometimes withdraws his obvious presence to develop your spiritual muscles. Romans 8:28 promises that all things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. Not some things, not the easy things, all things, even the silence, even the pain, even the crushing disappointment that nearly broke you. If it didn't break you, it built you. If it didn't kill you, it crowned you. That betrayal that shattered your trust, it's building discernment. That loss that broke your heart, it's creating compassion. That failure that humiliated you, it's developing humility. That illness that weakened your body, it's strengthening your spirit. God has been using your pain as a sculptor uses a chisel. Every blow, every crack, every chip isn't destroying you, it's revealing the masterpiece hidden inside. The statue was always there. The pain just removed everything that wasn't supposed to be there. You thought the silence meant God stopped caring, but the silence meant God started preparing. You thought the crushing meant you were finished, but the crushing meant you were being refined. You thought the darkness meant you were abandoned, but the darkness meant you were being positioned for a dawn that will blind your enemies and shock your critics. Every tear you've cried has been an investment in your testimony. Every sleepless night has been preparation for your platform. Every unanswered prayer has been God saying, "I've got something bigger planned." The silence is about to break. The crushing is about to end. The preparation season is about to graduate into the manifestation season. But here's the question that will determine everything. Are you ready to step out of the pit and into the palace? Are you ready to trade your victim story for your victory story? Because this Sunday, God begins to take full control, and everything you've been through, every tear, every trial, every crushing moment has been preparing you for what happens next. Listen carefully, chosen one. What if I told you that every Sunday you've attended, every church service you've sat through, every worship experience you've had was just preparation for this Sunday? What if everything you thought you knew about God's timing was about to be shattered? Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. Sunday isn't just a calendar date circled in red ink. It's not just the day you dust off your good clothes and show up out of habit. Sunday is a cosmic portal, a dimensional gateway where heaven crashes into earth, where the impossible becomes inevitable, where your struggle ends and God's sovereignty takes the wheel. You've been treating Sunday like a routine when God designed it as a revolution. You've been approaching it like a suggestion when heaven intended it as a summons. But this Sunday, everything changes. Right now, as I speak these words, there's a shift happening in the spiritual atmosphere around your life. Can you feel it? That restlessness in your spirit, that sense that something monumental is about to break open. That's not anxiety, that's anticipation. That's your soul recognizing the sound of approaching victory. For too long, you've been the one carrying the weight. You've been the one staying up at night, calculating how to make ends meet. You've been the one trying to fix what's broken, heal what's hurting, restore what's been stolen. You've been fighting battles with your own strength, your own wisdom, your own limited resources. But God is saying, enough. In Exodus 14:14, when the Israelites stood trapped between Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea, when logic said they were finished, when every human strategy had failed, God spoke one life-altering declaration. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say, try harder. He didn't say, figure it out. He didn't say, work faster. He said, be ye still, because when God takes over, your effort becomes irrelevant. Your struggle becomes unnecessary. Your panic becomes pointless. This Sunday, you are walking into that same Red Sea moment. You are stepping into a space where your effort ends and God's glory begins, where your limitations bow to his limitlessness, where your impossibilities surrender to his I am. But here's what's breaking my heart. Most people will treat this Sunday like any other Sunday. They'll show up physically but remain absent spiritually. They'll sing the songs but miss the symphony. They'll hear the message but ignore the miracle. Don't be most people. This isn't just a church service you're walking into. This is where chains break. This is where history bends. This is where destiny is delivered. This is where God looks at everything that's been holding you back. The debt, the depression, the disappointment, the delay, and says, move. Your enemies have been celebrating too early. They thought your silence meant surrender. They thought your struggles meant defeat. They thought your delays meant denial. They were wrong. Your silence was preparation. Your struggles were strengthening. Your delays were divine positioning. This Sunday, God is about to remind your enemies and you that when he decides to move, nothing can stand in his way. Not poverty, not sickness, not broken relationships, not generational curses, not decades of disappointment. When God takes over, He doesn't just change your circumstances, He changes your capacity. He doesn't just fix your problems, He elevates your position. He doesn't just heal your wounds, He upgrades your warfare. But you have to show up ready, not casually, not distracted, not half-hearted, ready. Ready to surrender the controls you've been clutching, ready to release the burdens you've been carrying, ready to receive the breakthrough you've been believing for. Mark it on your calendar. Circle it in permanent ink. Set an alarm. Cancel every distraction. This Sunday, you step into takeover territory. This Sunday, you cross from the realm of struggling into the realm of supernatural supply. This Sunday, you graduate from victim to victor. The question isn't whether God is ready to take over. The question is whether you're ready to let Him. If you can feel the fire of faith rising in your chest right now, if your spirit is already saying yes to what God wants to do, type, "I'm ready" below. Let heaven know you're not just attending this Sunday, you're surrendering to it. Because something tells me that after this Sunday, you'll never be the same again. You know what breaks my heart? You've been praying for breakthrough while standing on holy ground. You've been begging God to move while His power has been waiting for your permission. You've been living like a pauper when you're royalty, fighting like a victim when you're victorious, struggling like an orphan when you're an heir. But what does it actually look like when God takes over? Let me paint you a picture that's going to shatter every limitation you've accepted as normal. When God takes over, chains fall without keys. Just like in Acts 12-7, when Peter was bound in prison, chained between soldiers, awaiting execution. The Bible says, "Suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side and woke him up. 'Quick, get up,' he said, and the chains fell off Peter's wrists." Those chains didn't require a locksmith. They didn't need a court order. They didn't wait for visiting hours. They responded to heaven's authority. Right now, some of you are chained to debt that mathematically shouldn't exist. You're making payments on bills that keep multiplying like a nightmare. But when God takes over your finances, bills get paid with no explanation. Money shows up from sources you forgot existed. Checks arrive in the mail that you weren't expecting. Debts get cancelled by institutions that made errors in their system. That's not luck. That's heaven invading your bank account. When God takes over your body, healing comes to bones doctors gave up on. Arthritis that plagued you for 30 years suddenly releases its grip. Blood pressure that required 3 medications normalizes overnight. Pain that kept you awake for months simply vanishes. Your doctor runs the same tests twice because the results don't match your file. Some of you have been told to manage your condition for the rest of your life. But when heaven takes over, there's no managing, there's only miracle. When God takes over your family, addictions get uprooted without a 12-step plan. That son who's been lost to drugs for 15 years suddenly calls you crying, saying, "Mom, I don't know what happened, but I don't want this anymore." That daughter who cut off all contact shows up at your door asking for forgiveness. You've been interceding for years, wondering if your prayers were bouncing off the ceiling. But every tear you shed was an investment in divine intervention. Remember Joseph? One day he was forgotten in prison, falsely accused, abandoned by everyone who could have helped him. The next day, Pharaoh's dream demanded interpretation. In one moment, Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister. Genesis 41 tells us it happened so fast that by evening, Joseph was wearing Pharaoh's signet ring and riding in the second chariot. That's not career advancement. That's divine elevation. But here's what terrifies the enemy about God's takeover. It bypasses every system designed to keep you limited. When Peter cast his nets in Luke 5, he'd been fishing all night with nothing to show for it. Professional fisherman, perfect equipment, ideal conditions, 0 results. Then Jesus said, "Put out into deep water and let down the nets for a catch." Peter's response? Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets. That, but because you say so, changed everything. Luke 5-6 says, when they had done so, they caught such a large number of fish that their nets began to break. The same waters that had been empty suddenly exploded with abundance. The same nets that came up dry suddenly couldn't contain the harvest. The only variable was God's involvement. Listen to me carefully. Some of you have been fishing in empty waters for years. You've been working the same job, living in the same struggle, fighting the same battles with the same disappointing results. You've concluded that this is just your lot in life. But what if God is saying, put out into deep water? What if this Sunday isn't just another church service, but your moment of divine takeover? What if heaven has been waiting for you to stop managing your limitations and start expecting your breakthrough? Here's what I need you to understand. When God takes over, He doesn't improve your circumstances, He dominates them. He doesn't adjust your situation, He rewrites it. He doesn't modify your story, He authors a completely new chapter. Right now, in the spiritual realm, angels are being dispatched with your breakthrough. Demons assigned to your family line are being stripped of their assignments. Strongholds that have operated for generations are being demolished. But here's the key. God's takeover requires your permission. He won't force His way into your situation. He waits for your surrender. You're nevertheless at your word. If you want that kind of takeover in your life, if you're tired of fighting battles that heaven has already won, if you're ready to stop managing your problems and start expecting your miracles, then I need you to do something right now. Say it with me. God, take over. Say it out loud. Let the walls of your house hear it. Let the atmosphere around you shift. Scare every demon that's been assigned to your name. Serve notice to hell that their lease on your life has expired. God, take over my finances. God, take over my health. God, take over my family. But are you ready for what happens next when you truly surrender control? Listen carefully, chosen one. The revelation you just received isn't meant to sit idle in your spirit like a beautiful song that never gets sung. This is activation time. This is where the rubber meets the road, where heaven's whispers become earth's reality. You've got exactly 7 days. Not 7 weeks. Not 7 months. 7 days until God takes full control of your life this Sunday. But here's what most people don't understand. Divine intervention requires human preparation. You can't show up to a supernatural appointment with a natural heart. Let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many times have you sensed God moving, felt His presence stirring, heard His voice calling, and then walked away unchanged? How many divine moments have you let slip through your fingers because you were too busy, too distracted, too comfortable in your spiritual mediocrity? The brutal truth is this. Most people want God's power without God's process. They want the miracle without the preparation. They want the breakthrough without the heartbreak that breaks open the very places where God wants to dwell. But not you. Not this time. The widow in 2 Kings 4 understood something that transformed her desperation into multiplication. When Elisha asked what she had in her house, she didn't lie about her poverty. She said, "Your servant has nothing there at all, except a small jar of olive oil." Nothing, except. Those 2 words changed everything. Because God doesn't need much, He just needs empty vessels. Here's your divine assignment for the next 7 days. Day 1 through 3. Clean the room of your heart. I'm talking about a spiritual deep cleaning that would make your grandmother proud. That bitterness you've been nursing against your ex-spouse, release it. That fear about your financial future that keeps you awake at 3 a.m., surrender it. That pride that whispers, "You can handle this alone," crucify it. Because here's what I know. After 5 decades of watching God move, He won't fill what's already occupied. He won't share space with your idols, your grudges, your self-reliance. Every square inch of spiritual real estate matters. Day 4 through 6. Become an empty vessel. This isn't about emptying your bank account, though God might challenge your priorities. This is about emptying your preconceptions, your limitations, your small thinking. Stop telling God what He can't do in your life. Stop limiting the limitless one with your logic. Remember what Jesus said in Mark 10:27. With man this is impossible, but not with God. All things are possible with God. All things, not some things, not easy things, all things. But here's where most people stumble. They clean house and then immediately start redecorating with the same old furniture. Don't you dare fill that sacred space with worry, doubt, or yesterday's limitations. Stay empty, stay expectant, stay ready. Day 7 this Saturday. Write it down. Get a piece of paper, grab a pen, and make this covenant real. Write today's date at the top. Under it, write these words: I agree, I align, I receive. This isn't positive thinking or self-help psychology. This is what Queen Esther understood when Mordecai challenged her in Esther 4:14. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Such a time as this. Not such a time as might be convenient. Not such a time as when you feel ready. Such a time as this. You think it's coincidence that you're hearing this message right now? You think it's accident that your spirit is burning within you as these words penetrate your soul? Wake up, chosen one. This is your such a time as this moment. Your written covenant isn't a contract with mates, a sacred agreement with the Almighty God of the universe. When you write those words, you're telling heaven, I'm not just a spectator anymore. I'm not just hoping for change. I'm positioning myself to receive what you've been trying to give me. Because here's the heart-stopping truth that will either transform you or terrify you. God has been waiting for your yes longer than you've been waiting for His breakthrough. He's been holding back blessings because He's been waiting for vessels that can handle the weight of His glory. This Sunday isn't just another church service. It's not just another message. It's a divine collision between your readiness and God's release. But you've got to show up prepared, not hoping, aligned, not just attending. The countdown has begun. 7 days to clean house. 7 days to make room. 7 days to position yourself for the kind of divine takeover that will make your past struggles look like preparation for your future glory. So here's my challenge to you right now. Drop today's date in the comments below. Let it ring in heaven's courts. Let the angels record the moment you said yes to transformation. Let this be your public declaration that you're done with spiritual mediocrity and ready for divine control. Because in exactly 7 days, God is going to show up and He's looking for empty vessels who are ready to overflow. Are you one of them? You know what terrifies most people? It's not death, it's not poverty, it's not even sickness. What terrifies people is when their carefully constructed world starts falling apart. When the job they thought was secure suddenly disappears. When the relationship they built their identity around crumbles. When the bank account they trusted as their safety net gets wiped out overnight. But chosen one, what if I told you that what you call destruction, God calls reconstruction? What if what you're calling your worst nightmare is actually heaven's greatest mercy? Here's the truth that will shake you to your core. God is not in the business of fixing what was never meant to stand. He's in the business of complete demolition when something isn't built on His foundation. Listen to what Scripture declares in Hebrews 12:27. The words, once more, indicate the removing of what can be shaken. That is, created things so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Do you understand what this means? God Himself is the great shaker. He's the divine earthquake that tests every foundation. And if your life, your dreams, your relationships, your security, if any of it crumbles when he moves, it means it was never built to last anyway. You've been living in a house of cards, calling it a mansion. Think about the last 2 years of your life. Think about what you lost. That promotion that slipped through your fingers. That person who walked away without explanation. That health scare that made you question everything. That financial blow that left you gasping for air. You called it tragedy. You called it unfair. You called it the worst thing that ever happened to you. But what if God calls it preparation? What if every shaking, every loss, every disappointment was heaven's way of clearing the debris from your life? What if God looked at your situation and said, "My child has been settling for cardboard when I've prepared them a palace built of solid rock"? The prophet Haggai heard the voice of the Almighty declare, "I will shake the heavens and the earth, the sea and the dry land. I will shake all nations." This isn't just ancient prophecy, this is present reality. God is shaking everything that can be shaken right now, in your life, in this very moment. And here's what's going to blow your mind. You didn't lose anything that belonged to your future. You lost what was blocking your future. That toxic relationship that drained your spirit for 3 years. God didn't let it fall apart to hurt you. He let it fall apart because the person he's prepared for you can't enter while you're still tied to what was killing you slowly. That business that failed despite all your efforts, God didn't allow it to crumble to destroy you. He allowed it to crumble because the empire he's building through you requires a completely different foundation, one built on his wisdom, not your willpower. That financial setback that left you feeling like a failure, God didn't permit it to punish you. He permitted it because the wealth he's about to release into your life would have been wasted on the person you were before the shaking. You lost some people, some income, some status, some comfort, but you didn't lose your soul. You lost what wasn't assigned to your next level. Every earthquake serves a purpose. It reveals what's built on solid ground and what's built on sand. It exposes the fault lines. It shows you where the weak spots are before the real pressure comes. God has been your divine contractor, and he's been doing demolition work in your life, not to leave you homeless, but to build you something worthy of who you're becoming. Not to make you poor, but to prepare you for wealth you could never manage with your old mindset. Not to make you lonely, but to make room for relationships that will actually add to your life instead of subtracting from it. The shaking isn't your breakdown, it's your breakthrough under construction. But here's what's crucial for you to understand. The shaking phase is almost over. The demolition is nearly complete. God has removed what needed to be removed. He's cleared what needed to be cleared. He's shaken loose what was never meant to be permanent. And this Sunday marks the end of the shaking season and the beginning of the building season. You've been in the valley of dry bones long enough. You've been wandering in the wilderness long enough. You've been waiting for your breakthrough long enough. The shaking was preparation. This Sunday is presentation. God is about to present you with the life he's been constructing while everything else was falling apart. He's about to reveal what he was building in secret while you were mourning what you lost in public. If it's shaking, it's not breaking you. It's making room for what God is about to pour. And what he's about to pour into your life is so massive, so overwhelming, so beyond your current capacity that everything had to be cleared out first. Your cup had to be emptied so it could be refilled with something infinitely better. The question isn't whether God is going to move in your life. The question is, are you ready for him to take full control of what he's been preparing? Because chosen one, the shaking is over. The building begins this Sunday. And what God builds, no earthquake can destroy. You've buried people, haven't you? I see you nodding. You've stood at gravesides staring into holes in the ground that felt like holes in your heart. You've watched dreams flatline. You've seen opportunities slip through your fingers like sand. You've buried versions of yourself, the young dreamer, the hopeful romantic, the fearless entrepreneur, and some of you are still visiting those graves every single day. But here's what's breaking God's heart tonight. Some of you are still trying to keep alive what heaven already buried. Let me ask you something that's going to sting. How much energy are you wasting trying to resurrect what God put to death? How many tears are you crying over relationships that were toxic from the start? How many sleepless nights are you spending mourning jobs that were crushing your spirit? How many prayers are you praying for God to bring back what He intentionally removed? You're performing CPR on corpses. Listen to me very carefully. That marriage that ended, that business that failed, that child who walked away, that health you lost, that dream that died. God won't bless what you keep trying to resurrect outside His will. He won't breathe life into what He allowed to expire for your protection. You think it was loss. God calls it liberation. You think it was failure. God calls it redirection. You think it was punishment. God calls it preparation. In John 12:24, Jesus spoke a truth that will either set you free or offend you tonight. Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. That word, unless, is not a suggestion, it's a spiritual law. Death comes before multiplication, burial comes before breakthrough. The old you has to die for the new you to be born. But you're fighting the funeral. You're arguing with the grave. You're demanding God explain why He took what you thought was yours forever. Here's the shocking truth that's going to rearrange your thinking. What you lost was never yours to begin with. You were just a steward. God was the owner. And when the owner decides to repossess his property, the steward doesn't get to negotiate. Some of you have been angry at God for 20 years because He closed a door you wanted to stay open. You've been bitter because He ended a season you wanted to last forever. You've been questioning His love because He removed people you thought you couldn't live without. But what if God wasn't taking from you? What if He was protecting you? What if that relationship you're still crying over would have destroyed your destiny? What if that job you lost was a dead end disguised as security? What if that friend who betrayed you was actually a Judas leading you away from your purpose? What if God loved you enough to bury what would have buried you? I need you to understand something tonight. Every ending in your life has been a divine editing session. God has been cutting out the scenes that don't belong in your story. He's been deleting the characters who were never meant for your final chapter. He's been closing doors to rooms that would have become your prison, and you've been fighting Him every step of the way. You've been trying to dig up what God buried 6 feet deep for a reason. You've been trying to resurrect what God put to death because it was slowly killing you. You've been mourning losses that were actually blessings in disguise. Tonight, this stops. Tonight, you stop visiting the graveyard of your past. Tonight, you stop bringing flowers to dead dreams. Tonight, you stop trying to resurrect what God has laid to rest. Because something greater is waiting to rise. Something so beautiful, so powerful, so aligned with your divine purpose that it will make you grateful for every death that had to occur to make room for this new life. But it requires your cooperation. It requires your surrender. It requires you to let go of what you're gripping so tightly that your knuckles have turned white. God is waiting for you to release what's dead so He can reveal what's alive. He's waiting for you to stop trying to resurrect the past so He can birth your future. He's waiting for you to trust His timing, His wisdom, His love enough to let Him bury what needs to be buried. The question that will determine whether you enter that new realm this Sunday is this: are you ready to let it die so something greater can rise? If you're done holding on to what can't hold you anymore, comment, "I let it go" below. Let God know you're finally ready to release what's dead and receive what's alive. Let heaven know you trust His hands more than your own understanding. Because, chosen one, what's about to rise from the ashes of your surrender will leave you speechless. Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. For decades, maybe your entire life, you've been wearing masks to survive in a world that taught you to hide who you really are. You learned to smile when you were dying inside. You learned to say, "I'm fine," when everything was falling apart. You learned to shrink yourself small enough to fit into spaces that were never meant for your soul. But here's what heaven wants you to know right now. God doesn't anoint masks. He anoints your real face. The face you've been hiding, the dreams you've been suffocating, the voice you've been silencing, the power you've been apologizing for. That's what heaven recognizes. That's what heaven calls by name. You see, the enemy has been running a masterful deception on your life. He convinced you that your scars made you unworthy, that your failures disqualified you, that your past mistakes were permanent barriers between you and your destiny. He whispered lies so convincing that you started believing them yourself. You're too old now. You missed your chance. Look at all the time you've wasted. You're not smart enough, not talented enough, not connected enough. God could never use someone like you. But what if I told you that everything you've been told about yourself was a lie? What if the very things you've been ashamed of are actually the exact qualifications God has been looking for? Look at Moshe, had a speech impediment and was a murderer. God chose him to deliver His people. Look at David, he was the youngest, smallest, most overlooked son in his family. God made him king. Look at Peter, he denied Jesus 3 times in one night. Jesus made him the rock upon which the church was built. Your disqualifications are God's qualifications. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, something is stirring in your spirit because your soul is remembering something your mind forgot. You are not broken, chosen one. You are being remembered, not by people, by heaven. Jeremiah 1-5 says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Do you understand what that means? Before your first breath, before your first mistake, before your first disappointment, God already knew exactly who you were going to become. He saw your entire story, the good chapters and the hard ones, and He still chose you. You've cried in bathrooms no one knew about, but angels were posted at your door. You've whispered prayers in the dark that felt like they hit the ceiling and fell to the floor. But every word reached the throne room of heaven. You felt forgotten, overlooked, passed by. But your name has been written in the palm of God's hand this entire time. Isaiah 49-16 declares, "See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands, not written in pencil, not typed on a screen, engraved, permanently carved into the hands that created the universe." You didn't accidentally find this message today. You weren't randomly scrolling when this video appeared on your screen. This is a divine appointment. This is heaven's way of holding up a mirror and saying, "Look again, but this time see yourself the way I see you." For too long, you've been looking at yourself through cracked mirrors, the mirror of past failures, the mirror of other people's opinions, the mirror of societal expectations. But those mirrors are all distorted. They show you a lie. Today, God is giving you His mirror. And in His mirror, you don't see a broken person. You see a chosen vessel. You don't see a failure. You see a fighter who refused to quit. You don't see someone who's too late. You see someone who's right on time for their divine assignment. Here's your aha moment, chosen one. You didn't come this far to discover a new path. You came this far to discover who you really were all along. Every tear you've cried has been preparing you for this moment. Every rejection you've faced has been redirecting you toward this destiny. Every closed door has been protecting you from settling for less than God's best. You've been in training your entire life for what's about to unfold this Sunday. The depression you survived taught you compassion. The betrayal you endured taught you discernment. The loss you experienced taught you how to treasure what matters. The struggle you overcame taught you strength. Nothing was wasted. Every scar is now a stripe of authority. You've always been marked for greatness. You've always been called for a purpose. You've always been known by heaven. The only thing that's changing is your awareness of these eternal truths. Right now, the spiritual realm is buzzing with activity because your awakening has begun. The same God who parted the Red Sea is about to part your circumstances. The same God who raised Lazarus from the dead is about to resurrect dreams you thought were buried forever. The same God who turned water into wine is about to transform your ordinary into extraordinary. But here's what you need to understand. This transformation doesn't begin when you feel ready. It begins when you say yes to who you've always been. This Sunday isn't just another day on the calendar. It's the day heaven has circled for your divine reveal. The day when the masks come off and the real you steps forward. The day when God stops whispering and starts declaring who you are for all to hear. But the question that will determine everything, the question that will either unlock this new realm or keep you trapped in the old one, is simply this: are you ready to stop hiding and start shining? Let me tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. Hell didn't attack you because of who you were. Hell attacked you because of who you were becoming. Think about it. The devil doesn't waste ammunition on people who pose no threat. He doesn't send his finest demons after ordinary folks living ordinary lives. But you've been under constant assault. Financial pressure that came out of nowhere. Relationships that exploded without warning. Health scares that doctors couldn't explain. Dreams that got delayed year after year after year. You thought it was bad luck. Hell knew it was divine destiny trying to break through. The enemy saw your scroll before you did. While you were wondering why life felt so hard, hell was reading the blueprint of your future. They saw the anointing. They saw the influence. They saw the lives you were destined to touch. And they launched a preemptive strike to take you out before you ever figured out who you really are. Every delay was strategic. Every heartbreak was calculated. Every false accusation was designed to make you quit your post. Look at Job. God said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job?" Job 1-8. Did you catch that? God didn't hide Job from the devil. He pointed him out. Why? Because Job was about to demonstrate something so powerful that heaven needed hell to witness it. The greater your calling, the fiercer the warfare. But here's what hell miscalculated. They thought breaking you would stop you. Instead, it was preparing you. Every time they knocked you down, you got back up stronger. Every time they stole from you, you learned to trust God as your provider. Every time they isolated you, you discovered that God was all the company you needed. You weren't being destroyed. You were being developed. The devil couldn't kill you, so he tried to confuse you. He whispered lies about your worth, made you question your calling, convinced you that maybe you heard God wrong, maybe you weren't really chosen, maybe this was all in your head. But confusion is not the language of heaven. God is not the author of confusion. When your mind is spinning, when nothing makes sense, when you feel like you're losing your grip on reality, that's hell's last desperate attempt to derail your destiny. But Isaiah 54-17 settles it once and for all. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. Notice it doesn't say no weapon will be formed. It says no weapon will prosper. Hell can form all the weapons they want. They can launch every missile in their arsenal. But prosperity, success, victory over your life? Never. You want to know why the attacks were so violent? Because hell knows something you're just beginning to understand. This Sunday isn't just another church service. It's the beginning of your public manifestation. The realm you're about to enter doesn't just change your life, it changes the spiritual atmosphere around you. When you step into divine control, you become a living threat to hell's kingdom. Every senior citizen who feels like their best days are behind them, hell lied to you. Every person who thinks they're too old to make a difference, that's demonic deception. Moses was 80 when God said, "Now I'm going to use you." Abraham was 99 when the promise finally manifested. Your age is not your limitation, it's your qualification. The warfare intensified because hell knew this day was coming. They knew that once you stepped into this realm where God takes full control, you'd become unstoppable. They threw everything they had at you to prevent this moment. Depression to cloud your vision, sickness to weaken your resolve, financial pressure to distract your focus, relationship problems to isolate you from support. But look at you, still here, still believing, still standing. Every attack that was meant to destroy you became the very thing that qualified you for this next level. The pain didn't break you, it broke off everything that wasn't supposed to go with you into this new realm. The pressure didn't crush you, it compressed you into pure spiritual dynamite. You survived what was meant to kill you. You endured what was designed to drive you insane. You stood when everything in you wanted to fall. That wasn't your strength. That was God preserving you for this Sunday. Hell fought you violently because they knew what was coming. They saw the scroll. They read the script. They knew that once you stepped into this realm of divine control, their hold over your life would be shattered forever. Every chain would break. Every curse would lift. Every limitation would evaporate. The war didn't work. You're still here. Your faith is still intact. Your calling is still burning. And this Sunday, everything that hell fought to prevent is about to unfold before your very eyes. Type, "The war didn't work" in the comments. Let hell know you're still standing. Let heaven know you're ready for divine takeover. But I need to warn you about something. The realm you're about to enter doesn't just bring blessings, it brings responsibility. And hell knows that too. Are you prepared for what happens when God stops asking for your permission and starts commanding your obedience? Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. What I'm about to tell you will shake the very foundation of how you see your past, your present, and your future. For too long, you've been living like a victim of circumstance. You've accepted less. You've settled for scraps. You've convinced yourself that maybe, just maybe, God forgot about the promises He whispered to you in your darkest hours. You've watched others prosper while you struggled. You've seen doors slam in your face while they opened for everyone else. But here's what the enemy never wanted you to discover. Every injustice you've suffered, every opportunity that was stolen from you, every blessing that was delayed, heaven has been keeping meticulous records. This isn't just bookkeeping. This is divine justice. You see, God operates on a supernatural economy that the world doesn't understand. In His kingdom, nothing is ever truly lost. Nothing is ever forgotten. And everything that was meant for you but got redirected, delayed, or stolen, it's been accumulating interest in the vault of heaven. Joel 2:25 declares with thunderous authority, "I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten." But here's what most people miss about this promise. God doesn't just restore what was taken. He multiplies it. He adds compound interest. He gives you back more than what you lost, because He's not just a restorer, He's a divine compensator. This week, the cosmic boomerang is coming back to you. Think about it. When you throw a boomerang with force, it travels far, cuts through resistance, and returns with even greater velocity. That's exactly what's happening with your blessings right now. Every prayer you threw into the heavens that seemed to disappear, every seed you planted in faith that appeared to produce nothing, every act of obedience that went unnoticed by man, they're all coming back to you this week with supernatural momentum. But here's the part that will blow your mind. What was beneath you will rise. Those who stepped on you, overlooked you, underestimated you, they're about to watch in stunned silence as God elevates you beyond their reach. The positions they thought were theirs, the opportunities they blocked you from, the respect they denied you, it's all being redistributed by divine decree. What was above you will fall. Pride, obstacles, systems designed to keep you down. People who positioned themselves as your superiors when God never crowned them as such. Watch how quickly the tables turn when heaven decides to rearrange the seating chart. And what left your hands will return multiplied. Every dollar you gave when you couldn't afford it. Every kindness you showed when you were hurting. Every time you blessed someone else while you were still waiting for your own breakthrough. It's all been recorded in the ledger of heaven, and this week, it's payback time. This isn't wishful thinking, dear one. This is spiritual law in motion. When God restores, He doesn't just give you back what was yours, He gives you what should have been yours all along, plus interest, plus overflow, plus an apology gift for the delay. You're about to receive back pay from heaven, decades of deferred blessings, years of accumulated favor, generations of stored-up breakthrough. It's all being released at once because divine timing has declared, enough is enough. The warehouse of heaven has been stocked with your name on it. Your shipment has been prepared. The delivery trucks are loaded and en route. And this Sunday, the floodgates open. But here's the question that will determine everything. Are you ready to receive what you didn't even know was still owed to you? Because this level of blessing requires a different level of faith. This magnitude of restoration demands a different level of expectation. The universe is about to correct every imbalance in your life. Justice isn't just coming, it's here. If you're ready to collect what heaven has been holding for you, if you can feel the shift happening even as you listen to these words, type "IT's payback time" in the comments below. Let the angels know you're prepared for divine recompense. Because, chosen one, your season of lack just expired. Your era of overflow has officially begun. Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. For 70 years, maybe 80, you've been told you're getting older. You've been convinced that your best days are behind you. You've been programmed to believe that at your age, God's done using you for anything significant. But what if I told you that's the biggest lie hell ever whispered in your ear? What if everything you've been feeling, that restlessness, that sense that there's still something more, that burning in your chest when you pray, what if that's not nostalgia? What if that's prophecy trying to break through? You weren't put on this earth to fade quietly into the background. You weren't created to spend your golden years just watching the world from the sidelines. You are not a has-been. You are a what's about to be. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to realize. You are the seed your grandmother prayed into the earth. Every prayer she whispered over your cradle, every tear she shed, asking God to use her family for His glory, that wasn't just wishful thinking, that was prophetic intercession. And you sitting right there, breathing right now, you are the answer to prayers that were prayed before you could even walk. You are the voice your community forgot it needed. In a world gone mad with confusion, in a generation that's lost its way, God has been preparing a remnant. Not the young and restless, not the loud and proud, but the tested, the refined, the ones who've walked through the fire and came out smelling like roses instead of smoke. Think about this. Why do you think the enemy worked so hard to convince you that you're irrelevant? Why do you think culture pushes you aside, tells you to step down, makes you feel invisible? Because hell knows something you're just beginning to remember. You are the one hell hoped would stay asleep. But you're waking up now, aren't you? You feel it stirring. That thing inside you that refuses to be quiet. That voice that says, "I'm not done yet. God's not finished with me." That's not pride talking, that's prophecy recognizing itself. Romans 8:19 says, "Creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed." Did you catch that? Creation is waiting. The earth itself is holding its breath, waiting for you to step into who you really are. Not who you were, not who you used to be. Who you are right now, in this moment, at this age, with all your experience, all your wisdom, all your battle scars. You are not waiting on the move. You are the move. Let me paint you a picture that might shock you. Right now, somewhere in your city, there's a young person on the edge of giving up. There's a family falling apart. There's someone drowning in addiction, someone contemplating ending their life, someone who's lost all hope. And God, the Almighty Creator of the universe, He's looking for someone with enough life experience, enough spiritual authority, enough credibility to speak into that darkness. He's not looking for a 20-something with a theology degree. He's looking for you, someone who's been through hell and came back with testimonies, someone who's buried loved ones and learned that God's still good, someone who's faced financial ruin and discovered that Jehovah Jireh still provides. You were hidden, not forgotten, protected, not denied. All those years when you felt overlooked, when opportunities seemed to pass you by, when you wondered if God had forgotten your address, He was loading you like an arrow in a bow. The longer you pull back an arrow, the farther it flies. The more tension you create, the more powerful the release. You weren't late, you were being loaded. And this coming Sunday, something is about to release in the spirit realm. The bow of heaven is about to let go, and you are the arrow that's been aimed at the heart of darkness in your community. But here's what terrifies the enemy. You have something the younger generation doesn't have. You have credibility born from suffering. You have authority earned through endurance. You have wisdom that can only come from walking through decades of both triumph and tragedy. When you speak, people listen differently. When you pray, heaven responds differently. When you move, the spiritual atmosphere shifts differently. Because you're not just someone with an opinion, you're someone with a testimony. So why have you been content to sit in the back row? Why have you accepted the lie that your season is over? Why have you believed that God only uses the young, the energetic, the Instagram famous? The truth is staring you in the face. Every trial you survived was training. Every heartbreak you endured was preparation. Every mountain you climbed was conditioning for this moment. You are not a victim of your age. You are a victor because of it. This Sunday, God is calling you out of the shadows and into the spotlight of your destiny, not to perform, but to prophesy, not to entertain, but to transform, not to be seen, but to reveal the invisible God to a world that's forgotten He exists. You are not waiting on the move. You are the move. But here's the question that will determine everything. Will you answer the call, or will you let fear convince you that you're too old, too tired, too late? Because ready or not, this Sunday the realm is shifting. Chosen one, let me leave you with this truth that must settle deep in your spirit. You are not an accident of timing. You were not born too late or placed in the wrong era. God positioned you in this exact moment in history because He knew the world would need exactly what you carry. Remember this. Your age is not your limitation, it's your qualification. Every gray hair represents wisdom earned. Every wrinkle tells a story of endurance. Every scar is proof that you're a survivor, not a victim. You have been prepared for such a time as this. You are not alone in this journey. Even when the silence feels heavy and the path seems unclear, God is orchestrating every detail of your life. He has never stopped working on your behalf. And right here, in this community of believers, you have thousands of prayer warriors ready to stand with you, intercede for you, and remind you of who you are when you forget. This Sunday is not just another day on the calendar, it's your appointed time to step into the fullness of everything God has been preparing you for. The realm that awaits you is not some distant dream. It's as close as your next act of faith, your next prayer, your next step of obedience. But before I release you into your destiny, I need to ask you this question. When you stand before the throne of God, will you be able to say you gave everything you had to His kingdom, or will you have to explain why you held back? Let's pray together as one family. Heavenly Father, I place my hands on the shoulders of every person hearing this word right now. Lord, they've carried heavy burdens for too long. They've questioned their purpose, doubted their value, wondered if their best days were behind them. But you see them, Father. You know their names, you count their tears, and you have plans for them that are good. Right now, I pray you would breathe fresh wind into their time.